Welcome to the Feel Worthy podcast. Today I'm joined by my friend, another amazing sorority sister of Kappa Delta Chi, and fellow Florida State alumna Sarah Ortiz. She's a licensed mental health counselor and the founder of Grounds for Therapy. In this episode, we dive into the realities of burnout in high stress professions, how overcommitment can quietly drain us, and why shifting our perspective on achievement is essential for our well being. Sarah also unpacks therapy methods like accelerated resolution therapy, ART, and EMDR, clears up common misconceptions about therapy, shares how cultural conversations are shaping the way we think about mental health. Together, we explore what it takes to find the right therapist, the importance of self care and reflection, and even how fun plays a powerful role in creating healthier workplaces. Event pros, if you've ever found yourself pushing past empty or you're simply curious about what therapy could look like for you, this episode is filled with insight, compassion, and practical strategies you can take into both your personal and professional life. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Feel Worthy podcast. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. How are you feeling?
Excited. Definitely excited. I feel like these are conversations that sometimes we are afraid to be vulnerable about, so I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I think it's a great conversation to have. I would like to think that we're coming into an age where it's being spoken about more openly, but I don't know if we're quite 100% of the way there yet. So at least this is one step forward, I think, in getting there. So for our audience who doesn't know you, can you tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I'm a licensed mental health counselor in Florida. I specialized very early in my career in substance use. It was something that I kind of fell into, and then I didn't leave for like the first 5 or 6 years. It was very emotionally exhausting. There was a lot of burnout very early on in my career. And I remember in grad school, one of my professors saying that, like, most therapists burn out within their first 5 years of therapy and then move into other fields. And I was like, that is not going to be me. And then 2 years in, I was like, man, I don't know if I can keep doing this. So from there, I don't know, just kind of like reignited my passion. And I moved into working in juvenile detention, working with adolescents who are in lockdown facilities for any crimes that they've committed. And that really kind of helped boost things too. And then I 2020 happened, right? So we got locked down. I was locked down inside of a jail facility. It was very isolating. And just looking at things that were going on around the world, I was like, I feel like there's something I want to do differently. And so I started branching out into working in mobile crisis response. And that's what I've been doing since then. And in 2020, I also started my private practice, Grounds for Therapy. Um, which had like an inside joke with one of my clients. And I was like, you know what? I'm actually going to do this. And so I started maybe just seeing one or two clients a week. And then here we are 5 years later. I still work full time. So I do this part time. And so I had to close my referrals because I've been having such an influx of people. But it became a period of time where therapy was so much more accepted and sought after that I was like, you know what, this is the best time. And I think that that's really been able to continue. So like that idea of like not having these open conversations, I can see how we're slowly moving into that.
Absolutely. I think your experience is vast and I like to see the journey and progression with people because I think with careers, it seems like it always can be just so linear around the outside looking in. There's so much I want to touch on about your path and what you said, but I want to ask in this season of life, especially since you've navigated so much throughout your career and life and getting to this place of now having grounds for therapy and working full time and working in a space that's meaningful to you, what does feeling worthy mean to you in this season of life?
So right now, feeling worthy means honoring my limits and my boundaries without feeling guilt or really just trusting that I don't have to do everything. I'm one of those people that always feels like I need to be somewhere doing something for someone. If someone asks me, I'm like, yes, and I have a tendency to overextend myself. So feeling worthy is really honoring that like I don't need to be that person all the time. I still have value outside of the things that I can do for others.
I love that. And speaks so highly, especially like you've come full circle in your career, in your life, and like now at a point where boundaries don't feel like a dirty word or doesn't feel like a negative thing. And I know we'll dive more into that topic later, but um, it's a very powerful place to be in, I
Yes,
think.
it is. It is. It's there. I find myself like those things that I've worked on myself in therapy, those little voices back there being like, shouldn't you be doing something more? Shouldn't you be asking someone if they need help? And I'm like, you know what? No, I think I need help. Let me go do something for myself.
Yeah. I hear that completely. And even this was full transparency, even this morning, I was like, what does Kayla need? It's like I needed a little bit of a nap, and instead of like we was my son is sick, and I mean we did what we needed to do to make him feel better, but I was like, Dad, you got this, because
Yeah.
right now sometimes we just need to ask ourselves like, what do we need in this moment? And maybe it's not for someone else. Maybe it is some days,
Yeah.
but and it's selfish. I think it's filling us up, which is always that cliche, like fill our cup up, right? But it's so true.
It is. It's so true. Like we need to be able to have enough for ourselves in order to be able to give anything else to anyone else.
I know we talked about like the arcs of your career, but I also want to know when did you know you wanted to be a therapist? Like when did that start? Did you always know?
No, I so this is always something that like leaves me astonished, right? So I knew like very early on in life, like I don't want to be a therapist.
Really?
Yes. And I was like dead set against it. Like I don't want to be a therapist. I don't want to listen to other people's problems. Like what I realized was that I didn't want to be triggered by like my own history and my own dysfunction that I grew up in. And I was like, you know what? Like I've overcome all of this. I don't want to do it. And after graduating with my bachelor's degree, my best friend was just always like, you should go to grad school. You should become a therapist. Like you're so good at listening to people. You make people feel heard. And I think that's so important. And I was like, it's just not something I want to do. And then after 2 years of like being in the workforce with just a bachelor's degree, realizing that like we're going to be hungry for a long time, I was like, okay, well, maybe let me see what this looks like. Like it can't hurt to have more education. I always believe that like education is for everyone. How you get that is different, but education is for everyone. So I found a program that worked for me. It was a hybrid program here in Tampa. I went to school one weekend a month, 8 hours a day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it was in mental health counseling. And I was like, you know what? They're like, it's not going to hurt for me to like try one semester. And I was like, man, I think that I really made a good choice here. Um, and then it I don't know, it just became like this thing where I knew that what I experienced wasn't just for me. It was meant for me to be able to give hope to others that recovery is possible, no matter what your situation is, and that that's going to look different for everyone. So I always preface therapy and like expectations with have a flexible idea of what recovery looks like. We want to see what things look like when we're getting like 1% better every day, every month, every year. Recovery is going to look different for everyone. So initially, like, no, I was like dead set, I'm never going to be a therapist. And now I firmly feel like I was put on this earth to be a therapist.
I love that. I love when people find their passion and that it's giving back to the world.
Yeah.
And good for that friend for nudging you to say like, I think like this is your calling.
Yeah.
And also, but then more powerful for you for like listening and just like even trying it,
Yeah.
because I think that's half the battle, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like you need the outside force. You also need your confidence within yourself, or even the open-mindedness within
Hmm.
yourself to say, let me just try. And then all the pieces fell into place after that.
Yeah.
So I love that. I know you said you feel passionate about helping people and like really having that opportunity to show them that there was hope, and to be flexible, which I think is really big in this topic because it's not one size fits all.
Yeah.
Um, but with your work with first responders, healthcare workers, and just individuals under immense pressure. And I think that just speaks to our audience, especially because event professionals, like we see one of the top careers is of stress and high workloads is being an event professional or planner or someone in the event industry space. So what made you passionate about helping and what led you to helping people in these high stress roles?
I would say a lot of the people that I love very close to me are in these high stress roles. They're either working as first responders or even as event planners. A very good friend of mine is an event planner. And I see how, because they're always the ones that are getting things done, they always seem to be the person that doesn't need any help. So people rely on them so heavily to just continue to get things done. But then you see moments where you quickly rush behind the curtain, take a sip of water, and you see that facade crack, right? You see the person let out a sigh as they get back into their car and just take a minute to recollect themselves. You see these like small little moments. And I was like, man, who is helping these people? Who is telling them that it's okay to ask for help? How do I sneakily slide in here and be like, you know what? I'm not necessarily like offering help, but I'm gonna like, you say, like some of the things that I experience are feeling like I can't let my guard down, or like I have to have my mask on all the time, or like I don't want to burden others, the people that I love, with the things that I experience. Are those things that you ever feel too? And try to show that, like, I don't know, that we're just human. Like, commiserating is okay. Like, we have shared experiences and we can lean on each other for support. And so it was something that I kind of like fell into, like, as a passion project, working in mobile crisis response, seeing how much like trauma people are internalizing, or how we use our past traumas to keep ourselves motivated to feel like we need to be enough. And it was just something that I was like, you know what? Yes, this is something that I want to work with. This is something I want to specialize in. And I'm going to start to shift my career, especially my private practice, where I have all the freedom to do what I want, in that direction.
You're the perfect person for this conversation because I think the audience probably let out a big sigh of like, "Ah, she understands me." Because that's a lot of what we go through, right?
Yeah.
It's the pressure that being the person that has to be there for others, but also being polished and on and just having all the answers, which that takes a toll to keep that level of like perfection on all the time. There's not a lot of moments to breathe or to show that
Yeah.
because you're expected to carry that for everyone else, whether it's 800 attendees, whether it's your stressed out boss that is asking you for what do we do next in this situation at a moment's notice. You're like, okay, absolutely. I have a plan. No big deal. A lot of people are just known for being the person with the answers,
Mhm.
and it can sometimes feel like a sign of like self-worth, like I got the gold star, okay, I got another answer, and then it just fuels us, and then being able to just stop is not always feasible,
Yeah.
or doesn't feel like it anyways. But with your prior practice and grounded therapy, when you created the space, you said you're making it different and being able to kind of focus on this area. What does that look like? And like, why did you create the space? I heard it inside joke was
Yeah.
this catalyst perhaps for this, but can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so I remember sitting in session with one of my clients one time. This was still early on in my career. I had just gotten licensed, and they were like, "Oh, do you want to go into private practice?" And at the time, because working in a community mental health setting,
Yeah.
there's very little money to be made there. Um, and so I know like most therapists have like some kind of side hustle with therapy, because somebody's got to do that job, and maybe they're really passionate about that, but we have to supplement our income in some other ways. So I remember being, and a lot of back then, a lot of it was like, oh, once I get my license, I'm going to move into insurance and work for the insurance companies. And that was a good way to solidify like your finances as a therapist. Depending on where you work, sometimes your community mental health like settings will only pay you for every client that shows up, and you're not always having your clients show up. There are days, especially like in different seasons, it's very interesting in community mental health. It's either feast or famine, and you just know the patterns of when people are going to show up and when they aren't. And it's very much
Mhm.
related to holidays, times of year, stuff like that. So it was you knew like, man, these are going to be my slow times. I really have to find ways to keep my clients engaged, right? So I was like, no, 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 no. I'm never going to go to insurance, and I still stand by that. Um, it's like those, because those are the ones that deny us our claims, right? They're like, oh, this person is healed, so they don't need therapy anymore. Okay. So
whole thing. Like, let's define healed. But anyway, I
Thank you. This isn't a bone. So one day I was like, you know what? Really, my dream would be to have a coffee shop and upstairs have an office and just have an entrance in the back, like digital code. People could walk back there, have the anonymity of just being in a coffee shop getting coffee before they go into their therapy session and not have to worry about the stigma that's held with going to therapy, have it be something completely confidential, but they could also just sit there and chill and feel like it's a safe space for them. And I was describing it to them with these really earthy but industrial tones. And he was like, oh, what would you call it? Grounds for therapy? And I was like, okay, but wait, you're on to something. And it's funny because I later ran into that person a few years after, like at a Publix or something. They came up to me and they said hi and they were like, hey, what are you doing? And I was like, I actually started a private practice and I named it Grounds for Therapy. And we had like our nice little laugh about that. And it was kind of awesome because he was completely in recovery. I got to like meet his family. It was a wonderful, I don't know, just like a full circle moment. Like you don't get a lot of those in this job. So it was just really nice. But so that's how Grounds for Therapy came about. And that's still the long-term goal. There's a lot of fear-based stuff on why I don't do that yet. But yet is the most important part of that statement. I haven't done it yet, but I still have goals to make that happen one day.
I'm in love with this idea. And I I mean, so okay, how often do you go to coffee with your friend and you're like you leave and you're like, "Oh, I feel like that was a good like a therapy session because I just like shared all of my thoughts and I just needed that friend time." And obviously your friend is not a therapist, or maybe they are, but like they're not supposed to be like being a real therapist for you. But it's just that feeling of like I had the conversation, I had the open opportunity for that. I was getting a coffee too. And making it more accessible for people, I think, is the thing. I can already see it. Okay, the last episode, there was also like we have like four business ideas leaving by the end of this call. I don't
Love it.
know what's happening in this conversation. I'm like, guys, we need to jump on these, all of them. But I was like, I could see an upstairs where like they could even do virtual sessions and like these like not workspace rooms, but like the kind of like yeah, like closet workspace rooms and have their coffee or a real person. I don't know, Sarah. I
Yes, yes, all of it, yes.
am manifesting it. I'm ready. I tell sign me up. But I mean, I know we're comfortable with this topic, and I think people are starting to be more comfortable with it. But again, I know not everyone is, and I want to be understanding and space and like hold space for that too. So with that, what is one misconception about therapy or mental health that you wish more people understood?
Automatically questions or their answers are popping up. I think one of the first things is that, oh, I don't want to sit here and tell somebody else about my problems. How is that different from talking to one of my friends about my problems? I actually have a brand new client. He's 14 years old, and I usually don't do therapy with minors unless they're super motivated. And so that was his question. And I was like, you know what? That is so valid. Like, what's the difference? Like, how is telling me about your problems going to be different than telling your mom about your problems, your friends about your problems, your teachers about your problems, right? The people that you trust around you. And I was like, when you talk to me, I've been trained to listen to the words you choose. And that helps me see what thinking patterns you have. And if we can focus on tweaking those thinking patterns just a little bit, you'll find that things like anxiety decrease, hopelessness decreases, negativity decreases. And so it's not just telling someone about your problems and then, okay, cool, nice seeing you. It's about learning what your thinking patterns are and how we can fix them to have more positive outcomes, to see things not toxically positive, but to see things maybe for how they really are and to see that there are good pieces coming out of things. So I think that that's like a really big one recently that I've had come up, not just in my clients asking me, but even them saying like, man, I wish my loved one would go to therapy, but they don't see a point in talking to someone else about their problems.
You leave a few things other popping up. Any other misconceptions you thought
Yes.
of?
Yes. So cultural implications. Um,
Oh, yeah.
I'm Puerto Rican, right? Growing up in Latino culture, sometimes it was like you just need to drink this tea and you'll feel better. And I was like, okay, cool. I drank this tea and I'm not better. It was just or it was bitter, it was spicy. There was often ginger in it. And I still love ginger tea to this day, but I could tell you that all it does is like make my belly feel good and give me like comforting vibes. It does not change the amount of anxiety that I experience. If I focus on, being intentional and mindful about my moment and like, okay, well, this is a hot tea. I'm going to focus on like the warmth that I can get from it. I'm going to focus on the spiciness that comes from it, the milkiness that I add in there with my oat milk, the honey that gives it that sweetness, then yes, I can have a nice mindful moment, but no one taught me that. I had to learn that as a professional. So cultural implications is a big one. A big part of therapy is like, what does your support system look and how do we help bolster that? And so if it's already like implied that therapy is not something that's needed or that it makes you weak or that automatically you have a disability because you have some type of mental illness, especially depending on the different countries that people are coming from, where people with mental illness are sometimes sterilized or placed into facilities, then, it's really hard for a person to get the help they need without that support on the back end or feel like they have to hide a part of their life where they're seeking help because the people around them just don't understand. So that's a really big one for me as well.
And I think you bring up a really important topic because it's something that it's very honest and very real, and my own family members and that are perhaps skeptical about it. So if I do have those cultural implications or I feel I'm discouraged maybe, or I'm not sure, how does one start to lean into this topic, or how you perhaps overcome some of that to get the help that they need? Any thoughts there?
I feel like everybody has their rock bottom moment that's going to look different for everyone. It just takes one moment of bravery of being like, I can't do this anymore. I need something different. And having just a turning conversation with someone that I think can really bring people into a world where like, yes, therapy is okay, even if I only do it like once a month, right? Or even if I just do the consultation, I think that therapists, right, or the people close to them who know what their friends are like, have the capacity to have influence on someone who's brave enough to just make that first phone call or send that first text message. I have a HIPAA approved phone number at like through a secure texting system. And sometimes I'll get a text message and it's like, hey, I'm just looking to know a little bit more. What's something that you can provide me with? And just having an opportunity to have a real conversation with someone, I think that just that one conversation could really be the turning point for someone. Just that one moment of bravery to make the call and have someone answer.
Yeah. No, it takes a lot of courage, and I think it takes time. It takes it, and it could take the right moment
Yeah.
and the right person too. So when I've even like first considered therapy, so I'll be vulnerable and honest in this moment. I felt like having to know that the person was the right fit for me
Yeah.
and kind of try, right? And I tried first with BetterHelp because it seemed like the most accessible path. What is your take on that?
In every consultation call I have with someone, in every first intake session that I have with someone, I tell them, this is not you hire me and you're stuck with me for life. You need to find the best person for you. And if I'm not that best person, that's okay. I'm not going to take that personally. I want what's best for you in life. This is about your healing. And if I'm not the person that you think you can do that with, that's fine. That's fine. Let me help you find someone else. I'll submit a referral for you. Maybe I know someone that's a better fit for you. But you should definitely, when you find a therapist, you need to find the right one for you. One size does not fit all. We all specialize in different things. And then I always tell people we're all different people. So what even if we're in the same training session, we could have taken away different things, apply those things differently. So the relationship with your therapist shouldn't be taken lightly, right? You're going to be vulnerable with this person. And if you're going to be vulnerable with someone, let it be the right one. Go out and find what's best for you. I think BetterHelp was one of those platforms that really showed people that therapy is accessible to everyone, right? And so prior to lockdown in 2020, telehealth was very highly discussed And there were people who were like either dead set for it or dead set against it. And at one point, it was really only for people who were in like rural areas. They didn't have access to healthcare, or like they struggled with transportation. Doctors would give them a tablet or something like that that they could use to do their appointments. And then in 2020, laws changed and they were like, nah, therapy's for everybody. We need to make sure that we're taking care of these people. And boom, you have things like BetterHelp popping up that gave people a good taste of what they could have. Um, I know from experience that BetterHelp is not for everyone, but it gave people that taste of like, okay, I know what I could have, and now I'm gonna move and find something that maybe suits me better. And I think that that's great. That's exactly the perspective that you should take on it. You should definitely find something that's gonna fit better for you.
So, with that idea in mind, when looking for a therapist, what should someone consider? Like, what are things, is it aspects about the person, a type of therapy? I know I've looked at like Psychology Today and there's like so many boxes you can check. Yeah, like, I don't know which one to start.
Yeah.
So, what should people consider if they're even interested in starting this process?
If you're interested in starting therapy, you should definitely look for someone who's um like you said, like there's all those check boxes. Focus on like the top 3 things that you're trying to work on, because, on Psychology Today, I have a Psychology Today profile and it's like, oh, check box on all these different things, right? And so it's like stress management, anxiety. Well, don't those two go together? So then it's like you end up checking boxes on all these things you're qualified to do that are kind of intertied with each other. So I tell people, like, look at what your top 3 things are that you're trying to accomplish here. Are you trying to work on depression? Are you trying to work on balancing your mood? Are you trying to work on managing anxiety? People in high stress careers, that definitely should probably be one of them. I'm not saying that everybody's got a trauma history, but there's something that made us how we were. Maybe the trauma box should be checked. Just saying. Let's not discount anything. I think we have a tendency to be like, well, I didn't go to war, so my trauma is not that bad. Or I didn't experience a sexual assault, so my trauma is not that bad. Your trauma is yours and it had an impact on you, whether it was that bad or not. The result is still the same. So let's just address it. We don't have to minimize what we've experienced. It's about you. So if it's about you, let it be about you and be real. So I would say choose like the top 3 things that you're looking for and go to that. There are therapists that are like, I only see trauma clients. Cool. There are therapists that only see anxiety and depression. And I will say, like, before I started really specializing in different types of therapy, you're just kind of set free in the world. Like, here you go.
Like a college graduate, they're like, just start.
Yeah.
You're like,
You're like, okay, cool. I know how to turn on the laptop. Now, what do you want me to do?
I can type some buttons.
Yes.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
So it's a
Start
lot
somewhere.
like that with therapy. We're all trained in like the same things, but like we're what is that saying that's like master of none, something like that?
Oh my gosh. Jack of all trades, master of none.
Yes, 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 yes.
Okay.
That's kind of what we're like, right? So until we start working in our field and really honing in on what our skills are and clients that we work really well with, we really don't know. So then we choose to go down those paths. So even before I started really specializing in these people who experience high stress or trauma, especially, I was working in substance use, and I am a master certified addiction professional. And so that's really where my base specialty came from. And in working with that, I learned how to work with people who are codependent. Not everybody gets that experience. So if you struggle with codependency, don't go to the person who has no knowledge of working with codependency besides the basics, right? You want someone who knows how to do that. There are some therapists who aren't as strong on mindfulness. They're more reality based. So that if that's something that you're not looking for, then don't go for that. If you're a person who is experiencing borderline personality disorder and you need someone who does dialectical behavior therapy, don't go to the person who doesn't do it. Definitely go for the things that you're looking for. Weed people out and have consultation calls with them. If they don't do consultation calls, I'm not saying I'm skeptical of them, but I want to know why I can't just sit down and have a conversation with you first to kind of make sure that we're okay, we're a good fit. It's 15 minutes of your time. So if they do consultation phone calls, take advantage of that consultation phone call, because once you do your intake session, every time you meet with a new therapist, you're going to be doing that intake session again. So you're going to have to be vulnerable again, tell your story all over again, especially with things that are super complex You don't want to reopen a wound, reopen a wound, reopen a wound, and not have a way to cover it. So always look for what you need.
I think that was a really good point you made, because going back to however anyone finds therapy, there's a cost, right? Sometimes it's covered by insurance, sometimes it's not, sometimes you don't have insurance. I didn't realize that the 15-minute consultation call is something that is an opportunity for people, for those therapists that offer it, because that can be a way to just understand if that person is a good fit before you go down this long road or feel like you have to switch.
Especially with people who like maybe they feel like they have complex past. I'm like, okay, what brought you here today? That's the box you should check.
So I know we've talked about ART, and it was something I have never heard of before. So can you tell the audience more about it? Because I know I won't do it justice. And then in the line of like, how many different types of therapy methods are there? What, like, also break down maybe the basics. So let's start with ART. What does that look like?
Sure. So ART stands for Accelerated Resolution Therapy. It is a therapy that it was originally used to treat trauma, and what it uses is bilateral stimulation. So we're just trying to stimulate both sides of the brain. We do that through eye movements. Other forms of bilateral stimulation include like stimulating like physically. So some therapists will have things that vibrate, and so it vibrates in one hand, then vibrates the other hand, vibrates in one hand, vibrates the other hand. Or you could do it using like headphones and then have like a snap in one ear, then the other, snap in one ear, then the other. So using bilateral stimulation, what it does is it stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system. That's the part of your nervous system that's responsible for rest and digest. A lot of like what happens during a REM cycle when you're sleeping, your eyes are moving back and forth. That part of your brain is stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system. I always think of them like parasympathetic, my paratroopers. They're coming in to make sure that everything is okay and that I'm taken care of and I can be safe to grow. And so what that does is help keep the body in a calm state as a person processes their trauma or whatever it is that they're trying to let go of that day, right? It's been shown to have an impact on lots of areas of life, right? So I have someone come in and they're like, I have a really hard time managing rejection. And I'm like, okay, cool. So let's figure this out together. How do we use ART to help you with these feelings of rejection or with eating disorders or substance use or insert discomfort here? Whatever that is, we can figure it out using accelerated resolution therapy and process it. It's really cool because probably one of the best things about it is that you don't have to tell me any details about what you experienced. You get to keep that all to yourself. So when people get afraid to say something that could hold back healing, right? Because they're afraid of judgment, they're afraid of shame, of guilt that they feel. They don't want others to see them differently. Maybe they're telling a story about someone and they don't want that other person to be judged. They will hold those things back in traditional talk therapy, and that could be a really important part of the healing process. So in accelerated resolution therapy, you don't have to give any details. During the process, we just ask very basic questions about it, and you can either choose to share or not share. So that's a great piece of it that kind of makes people more open to try it, is knowing that they don't have to talk about their trauma. We ask just the person to visualize as we use bilateral stimulation. It provides the immediate word that pops into my mind is freedom, but it can provide reduction in symptoms in as little as one session. And most people only do like maybe 3 to 5 sessions before they feel like, I don't really think I need this anymore. But it's one of those things that you could always just drop in. You don't have to have like a strong rapport built with a therapist who's doing it. You just need to know that they know the protocol and you're here to get something healed, and we can walk through this together. And it's a lot about you keep the facts of everything that happened and you lose the pain of it. That is our goal through the session.
I think it's a really beautiful way for people, especially dipping their toe into therapy, feeling perhaps discomfort with like revealing everything. And I think people often associate just therapy with talk therapy, and they're like, I'm tired of talking, or I don't want to talk. And this seems like a way to also maybe even start the conversation without jumping right in, allowing them to feel and power in the moment to control some of it before being able to feel openly vulnerable in a situation that may be a little intimidating for them. Then I know we've talked briefly too, and EMDR, thank you. I was about to throw in a few other letters that I was like, I'm going. And that was also something I had never heard of before too. So there's so many different types. I guess from a new person's standpoint, trying this, like, are they just trusting a therapist to recommend the best treatment for them when they're in a session to suggest these things? Is it something that they can suggest to a therapist or find a therapist that maybe specialize in some of these other methods?
Yes, essentially, like when we're trained as therapists, we're trained with like the basic peer-reviewed, research-backed therapies, right? The biggest one is cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. That's our gold standard of therapy, helping resolve cognitive dissonance, helping to identify those thinking patterns so that we can see things differently, have different responses. If we can change the thought process, we can change the behavior ultimately. Most people are going to go with those things, and most people still need those things, right? But everybody has their own goal for therapy, and different therapeutic approaches should be based on what the client's goal is. So if a client comes to me and it says, I want to resolve this trauma, then, and I'm specialized in a trauma therapy like EMDR or ART, then I'm going to be like, cool, this is what I recommend we do. It does take a lot of vulnerability and trust on your part. I promise you that once we get through this, it's not something that you're going to have to experience that way ever again. You just have to have the trust in me and you have to face your own trauma one last time. If you can go ahead and do that, then cool. But like that is a thing. Like not everybody is specialized in these things. There's a huge cost that's associated with it. There are different steps we have to take. There's a supervision process. You have to do so many sessions before you can take the test to get certified. It's an intensive thing, right? We don't just send people out there like, oh, you learned it in 3 days. Now go out and do it and be free to help all these other people. No, there's a supervision process that happens to make sure that we're not causing harm to our clients as well. So it is up to the therapist, but there's also like a little bit of responsibility on the client as well to make sure that, again, if you're checking that box, you're looking for something that's more, um, I want to say solution focused. Solution focused therapy is a type of therapy, but maybe more goal oriented, right? If I'm trying to manage my anxiety, ART could be useful, but maybe CBT is going to be more useful in the beginning, right? But if I do know something very specific that I'm trying to work on, going to someone that I know can handle it is what you want to be able to look for, something that is more goal directed.
And not to scare anyone or put more work on the client right now, right? Or the consumer, or anyone who wants to have this. It's just knowing your options and knowing that there's more than just one type of therapy out there, because I think sometimes people, and myself included, I've thought just this is just one type. And I'm like, am I really solving everything I need to solve? But I didn't know enough. So I think this is just opening that conversation. If there are options, it isn't one size fit all. So I think that's just more of the underlining theme. I just
Absolutely.
get someone in the audience to be like, oh my God, how do I even begin?
Yeah.
And now I feel overwhelmed. And I was like, that is not what my goal is. My goal is really just more information is power, right? Like then
Absolutely.
you know how to make a decision for yourself, or at least where to go and start.
Yeah. I feel like, that I get a lot of clients that are like, oh, I Googled like what's a good therapy for this. And so like that's what I want to do. And I'm like, okay, cool. Let me educate you on what it is and how it can be helpful. Let me also educate you on some other therapies that we can use that would also be useful as well. And so I feel like a lot of times people come in maybe not knowing what ART is, but they know what EMDR is. And they're like, oh,
Yeah.
do you do that? And I'm like, I don't do that, but I do ART. Let me tell you how they're similar and how it can also be used.
Which I think is super helpful. I want to go back to kind of one of the things we talked about at the beginning. So part of your feeling worthy is um really understanding your limits and knowing that like not exist, and that you also need to fill your cup up and also be there for yourself too. But for those that don't know where to start with that, and burnout in this industry is a pretty hot topic, I really want to unpack it because I think it's important for people. So what is burnout really?
Yeah. So I would say burnout is not just like I'm tired, but it is being tired, being depleted in multiple areas of your life. There's disconnection, there's um There's apathy even sometimes associated with it. There's loss of meaning and forgetting, like, what was my purpose in starting this to begin with? And we see it not just in how a person approaches things, right? But like we see it in how they're in their eating and their appetite. There's usually like a reduction in appetite, or because I'm so stressed all the time, my cortisol levels are like super up here, and I'm eating all these like salty, snacky foods and maybe not getting the best nutrition. I'm giving up the things that I know I need in order to make adjustments. And it's like, oh, it's fine. I'll just throw a protein bar or granola bar in my purse and I'll snack on it later. And it's like, okay, I've made this adjustment in my mind to justify my need to continue to work more, but I have taken away from myself by doing that. And I tricked myself into thinking that I was giving myself something.
Or that I threw my
And it's hard because, again, going back to being that person that makes it all happen, you ignore your own physical and emotional needs. And there's that deep sense of responsibility that if they stop even for a second, everything's going to fall apart. And again, it leads to that depletion and its disconnection also from, if you're questioning your own purpose, right? You're sometimes just walking around like a zombie. You're going through the motions of things without any enjoyment, without any feeling even. And so that has an effect on your relationships at home, your relationships with friends. Sometimes that even leads to isolating, or I don't even want to go out. I just need to like sit and lay here and maybe that'll help. And we find that those things aren't enough. Not that they don't work, but it's not enough.
Yeah, because that other part is taking over so much that even when you eat just like more percent, like break like even a small crack into like the massive weight that you've taken on yourself.
Yeah.
So it's unbalanced essentially. So I do like love that definition, because I think some people just think of it as like, yes, I'm just tired, or maybe I'm just like overworked, and it'll be fine. I'll be done with this project in a minute, and then I'll get to the next one, and then I have some space in between the next one, but then somehow the space between the next one just gets smaller and smaller because more work and more responsibilities come in. It's a never-ending cycle. So especially in the event industry, like there's just always another event. There's always another request that's being added to our plates. And how do people get there? Is it a really fast process? Is it overnight, or is it slow? And then why do so many people miss the signs along the way?
So there's this technique that we teach people in therapy called cartooning, and it's visualizing things kind of like a cartoon in your mind, but you get to make alterations. And so in traditional cartooning, right, like I might tell you that as you're doing some kind of mindfulness exercise, visualize that like that person that was yelling at you, you change their voice so that it sounds like they just sucked in a balloon of helium and now they have this really high pitched voice, and it takes away from that interaction, right? And it kind of and helps us get to a different place. So I cartoon a lot in my mind, right? And so I tend to personify things because I feel like if I can visualize it, I'm a visual person. If I can visualize it, then I can understand it better. I can give it power or take away power. So I visualize burnout as like this thing that it whispers to you. It's not a scream. It's not like, hey, I'm here. It just slowly whispers to you that like you can give a little bit more. You can do a little bit more. Like we have a little more to give until you get to a point where you want to scream. And then all of a sudden, like you're the person that looks like they've maybe lost it a little bit. So it looks like pushing through when your body says stop. It looks like normalizing things like brain fog, snappiness, or numbness. I can tell you, I got to a point in my life where I was like, yeah, I'm just an irritable person. Thank you. I deeply resonated with that for a long time. Like, oh, yeah, like kind of the idea, this is probably a conversation for another day, but like the idea of like people who are told that they're too much. That was just part of my being too much, is that like I'm an irritable person and it takes a specific kind of person to be able to be friends with me. And that's not the truth. I'm actually not an irritable person. Now that I've done therapy and I've like learned how to manage myself better, I'm actually, quite joyful sometimes. Most of the time, I like to think.
I love it, actually.
Yeah, quite wonderful. And so like that snappiness, we start to ignore it, we normalize it. It's not even that we're ignoring it, we're acknowledging that it's there, but that's just normal. Or that numbness that we sometimes feel, that we normalize those things. And high achieving people are so often used to functioning at a high level that they don't notice when their baseline has shifted, and it becomes just such an issue at this point.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. And as you were talking about cartooning, I was like, I just picture like the little like angel and devil and like in from those like old school like Tom and Jerry or
Yes.
whatever cartoon. And then the little other one is like, do it, do it. And you're like, okay, fine, I could do it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're yelling at a meeting and you're like, what happened? Right. And you're like, I usually am not like this. And I mean, for me, I realized I was like, I really just started to say, like, I don't think I like myself right now, or I don't think I'm the person I normally am. Like, I'm more usually bubbly or like, and genuinely, so not just like, I am a robot and I'm a Stepford wife and I
Yeah.
just acting that way in a meeting. Like, I genuinely like people. And when I started to feel like I don't like people, or I don't just like certain things about I just know myself is not happening anymore. I know that's when the light bulb went on for me of like, oh, this is where I've hit burnout. And it's just been like this snowball effect that's been happening for so long that I just kept saying yes and yes and thinking that was the right thing because that's what the moment or the situation called, or I was going to be looked at differently. And it's like the snap judgment where you're like, okay, I'll just do it now. I'll just do it for now and it'll be fine and I won't do it again. And then all of a sudden again, it comes around the corner. You're like, what's one more time?
Yeah.
Like,
And it gets so highly tied to like your worth. Like, if I don't continue to do this, my worth diminishes. And
Mhm.
that's not true, but that's how we continue to feed that.
100%. It starts to feel like, and I've been saying this lately, of like you're chasing the gold stars. Like it doesn't feel like it at first, but you're just like, oh wait, that's another one, another hit of like, I gotta congratulations or a great job or a high five or whatever. Insert symbol here for you're doing awesome, and then it goes continues to just feed that. So you're like, okay, if I just keep stuffing all of this down, I
Yes.
keep doing all of these other things, then I will hit, I don't know, all of the gold stars and Mario and and then I win and I don't know what I win exactly,
Yeah.
but I feel like I won. So then that's where I think when people feel like they won, then that's when you're like, oh crap, I'm in burnout. I can't do this anymore. It's like not sustainable. I have a panic attack or I have high stress levels. I start barking at people or snapping at people. I'm just not myself anymore. And then how do you really like recover from it and come down from it and start to shift that back?
So you actually said something with the gold stars that really, really spoke to me. So I have had people talk to me about Jonah Hill, the Netflix documentary that he did with his therapist.
Yeah.
What his therapist is talking about is very greatly related to like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so people are like, but I'm supposed to have these achievements. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. You're right. We do need those achievements to reach that self-actualization, right? Purpose is going to be, yeah. Purpose is going to be something that changes throughout life. So self-actualization is going to look differently, but we also need to change what we think an achievement looks like, right? So a lot of us grew up, and I'm saying a lot of us, a lot of people of my age group, right, grew up thinking that like self-actualization or achievement is getting that gold star, but we only got those gold stars for external things. So we're motivated by external achievement, and it takes a shift in mental flexibility to say that doing something like stepping back and like for me, like going kayaking is still achievement. I have done something that just it wasn't for someone else. It was for me that keeps me well and that helps me be more myself, right? I took a step back and I went to I put built in time in my schedule where it says that I'm going to the gym and I cannot move that around in my schedule. It's just blocked there. That is still productivity. That is still achieving. It's just achieving for ourselves to be internally motivated for ourselves than to be externally motivated for achievement. So it's that shift in flexibility of what achievement looks like. You're still getting gold stars, just not for other people. and how I think it's such a big thing, because then as we slowly rebuild ourselves and come to feel again, right? That actually improves our work, our output, how we interact with others, how we achieve externally, because we've done the work to achieve internally. And others can see that and usually remark on that, like, oh my gosh, I've noticed that, like, you've just had this brightness to you recently, you've had this glow to you recently, is what people normally say, right? And it's like, I've started doing things for me. That's so wild. Thank you.
I'm glad we circled back on that because I remember there was a boss I had and I was like, you seem lighter. And they were like, you noticed? And I was like, yeah, you seem lighter. And I don't know what I recognize. And then lo and behold, later on, just certain things in their life have changed for them. But it I just was like, I feel like I have to say that because I know we've been in high pressure seasons before. It's nice when people feel that weight has lifted somehow. I really love what you said about doing things for yourself and giving yourself the gold star, which is big for me because, and I think in this event industry mindset too, because we get the gold stars from our client, from our customers, from our bosses, and that is constantly feeding that achievement. But one thing lately I've been talking about is those are not just impractical things that you need to do just later or like at a time when you're not busy. Like those are just normal things you can build into your weekdays or weekends, and they really fill your cup up. They give you an opportunity to have more creative space and light you up, and then that you can bring that back to work. Whereas if you don't do those things, then you're just always in work and work is your hobby. And then it's like you're never really disconnecting your identity from work. And then what if that job goes away? You're laid off. Or we saw the pandemic, like a lot of the event industry just went away for a bit because people didn't know what they needed for events. In-person connections weren't happening. And then virtual was happening, but only for a certain subset. So the radical shifts can happen just any day and time. And at the end of it, you do have yourself, right?
I think that's a great point, though, because like I remember in grad school, they were like, oh, well, how do we know that we've done something? I'm like, oh, when someone does the work. Okay, well, what's the definition of work? And that definition changes for everything that you do. And it doesn't have to be something that gives you a monetary gain. Sometimes work is something that gives you a gain in a different area of your life. And we need all of those different gains.
Absolutely. I really like the idea of like shifting the gold stars, literally putting gold stars in like your own planner. Like when you go to the gym, when you go to improv class, dance class, or you read, it's shifting that narrative that like we're not getting them from someone else, but we can just give them to ourselves. And that's when we start to, I think, do our not even just our best work, but like really like live our best lives. For those that are so far stuck into the work and they then feel the burnout, I know we've talked about like that crash happened and then you're like, oh wait, now we need to peel back the layers. But is there a way to start kind of getting back to and recognizing your burnout? What are techniques people can start to implement to move out of it?
Yeah. I tell people when you're making a change, don't try and change everything at one time. We recognize a problem, that's a huge change in and of itself, right? So in therapy, we have the stages of change, and recognizing that we have a problem is the second step. So we're doing good. Then the next stage of that, in order to get to a place where we're actively making behavior modification, is looking at what are the changes that I can make. So that step 3 is full of preparation. I tell people, think about what are the things that you want to change and maybe start implementing 1 or 2 things. Do that for a few weeks before you move on to the next one so that you have a solid base, right? So that you're not getting overwhelmed with all the change that's already increasing the overwhelm that you experience. So start with small, realistic shifts. What is something I can do? I got this from Atomic Habits, and it was just like one of the things that like completely changed
The
my
1%.
life. Yes.
That's
Yes.
perfect. Oh my God.
1%.
I was like, oh, I can do 1%. I can do like 1%.
I could do 1%. Could you? And so like I tell my clients that like, Atomic Habits is really life changing for me. If you want to listen to it, read it, do that. But like, what's 1% that you can do, right? Maybe that looks like you're going to take that 3-minute like little break to get a drink of water, pull down your mask and breathe for a second. Do 3 minutes of breath work. One of my favorite coping skills for breath work is box breathing, because you can do it when nobody's watching, right? So sometimes people will notice the deep breath work, right? But if I'm doing box breathing, it's a little more discreet. I recently did it in a meeting where I was highly triggered, and I did box breathing the entire time. And it's a very simple inhale for 4 seconds, hold that breath for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, hold that breath for 4 seconds. And it very much mimics like a normal breathing pattern, but it's a mindfulness exercise that helps us regulate that breathing. When we regulate our breathing, we slow down our heart rate, we slow down all of those adrenaline chemicals that are rushing through us that are trying to get us to keep going, keep going, keep going. We can keep going with the oxygen that we have in our system, right? So I tell people, like, start to incorporate that in like your small breaks. Create a habit of reflection, right? It doesn't have to be journaling to your diary. This is everything I did today. But when I started journaling, it was just reflection. This is everything I did today. From the small things, I brushed my teeth this morning. I made a cup of coffee. I had a chocolate croissant for breakfast. That's what I'm craving right now. So that's gonna get put on the list today. I had a chocolate croissant for breakfast. I went to Costco. I bought these things, and then I came home. I read a chapter of my book, and I took a shower, and now I'm laying down in bed. Just create a practice of reflection. What does your day look like throughout the day? And how did you feel about it overall? How many stars are we giving ourselves? Are we giving ourselves a 5-star day? Maybe today we only gave ourselves a 2-star day. Allow yourself to like have fun with that. How do you want to measure what your day looks like as you reflect back on it? Do you want to do Yelp reviews? Do you want to be a 9 out of 10, right? Do I want to see what my mood was versus like what I added into it, right? I think every food should have a sauce. Love sauce, love good saucy food, right? So my sauce is, what did I add into that day? It might have been that I was a little spicy in my attitude, and that's okay. I like spicy sauce. So like I had a 7 out of 10 day, and the sauce was like my habanero sauce for the day, right? Maybe my sauce for the day when I'm having like a more fun, chill, relaxed day is a Chick-fil-A sauce. I love Chick-fil-A sauce. I specifically like to dip my food first in Polynesian sauce, then in Chick-fil-A sauce. So like maybe that was the day I had. So that's what reflection looks like for me, but like reflecting on an event, not just how did the event go? How was I? What was my mood? What was my stress level? What did I need that I can look back on and make sure that I have that for next time? Implementing small things like that to help stay grounded in what you're doing and how you're doing it, not just what you achieved, but who were you authentically throughout that whole process? Were you authentic throughout that process? Turning off notifications just during your meals, right? It doesn't have to be that I turn off my notifications for long periods of time. That would give me anxiety. But during my meals, I love that. Just during my meals, I like to play solitaire on my phone while I munch on my saucy food. It doesn't have to be meditation or yoga or these things that sometimes people think of that, people who do therapy are doing. They're like on this higher plane of like burning sage and meditating and sitting in stillness. I don't sit in stillness. That's not me. That's not in my personality. Sometimes that just means remembering to drink water. For me, that means the night before, I put a hydration pouch in my lunchbox. In the morning, I put a pinch of Celtic sea salt. I'm prone to migraines. It's got more minerals and magnesium. Put a pinch of sea salt in there to help with hydration, along with my hydration pouch. And it's remembering to drink water, right? The bigger my container is, the more water I can drink throughout the day. It's remembering to give myself a calming breath throughout the day. People who grow up in dysfunction, they've learned that they only breathe with the top lobe of their lungs, and the lower part of their lungs don't get enough use. So taking the moment to take that deep breath and let it out at the end of the day. Small ways, small things that you can implement to give yourself time for you. That's your breathing exercise. That's your sip of water. That's your small thing that you did for yourself. And then slowly building up to what you want life to look like. Because making those small changes is going to feel selfish initially. and it's going to feel uncomfortable. And what you don't want is to do something that's going to make you feel so uncomfortable that you never want to do it again. And the idea of taking care of myself was just something that's not for me. Taking care of yourself is for everyone. So we want to just add in small things that we can do to make things better for ourselves in the long run.
Okay, first I feel a little called out because I do need it to me. But I know it's something, and I'll be honest, I know that it's not for everyone either. And it doesn't, and it takes time, right? Like it takes time. But I mean, I do other things too, and I love all of the things you shared because, so one, I think even color, like you can color code if like things went well, or you had more yellow in your day than certain moments were red. It's just a number of ways to kind of reflect and categorize that I think I love the floss approach because like make it fun. That's what we do with kids, right? We make it fun for them. Like, why don't we make it fun in our life and whatever makes sense in our life today? There were so many things you said that I was like, yes, 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 all of these things. Even just the moments in between, I think are so impactful too, because I love going on like a color walk and identifying things of different color and then being able to ground myself that way because now I'm bringing myself to the present. So there's just so many ways to do it. So I loved everything you said. I mean, this really, this boss thing got me. And I think there'll be a lot of great takeaways for people that they can do in these moments, because I think that's what people worry about, right? Like, I don't have time. Like, when do I fit this in? And also, am I going to look bad if I like have my phone on do not disturb and I didn't reply instantly? Or if they wait until 1 o'clock and I had my lunch from 12 to 1 and like at 1 I responded thoughtfully. So when you said that it's really for everyone, it really is, because if you're trying to respond in a moment that you're stressed, then your response is not going to be as great as if, unless you actually took the moment and then came back to it, right? Like things can wait. And we live in such a digital world where people are like, I just need instant gratification. Respond to me now. These messages were just to make us a little bit more accessible, not to take away every ounce of connectivity and having to be always on.
Being accessible has a different definition, right? It's not just having access to someone, but having access to them, like you said, having a thoughtful response. So like, if you want me to be truly accessible, then I need to have these moments for myself so that I can be the best version of myself that you have access to.
You know, on the topic of healing and giving your full self and fully accessible to work, to life, what have you learned about healing and how does it change the way someone shows up in their life, relationships, or career?
Love to think of healing as something that's holistic, and it's like a mind, body, spirit thing. So when I think of healing, I've seen it happen where like sometimes healing is like I get better sleep now. And now that I have better sleep, I can wake up and be on time for work. And now my relationships at work are richer and I have a support system now. And because I'm doing better at work now, maybe I'm being looked at for a promotion. Um, I think healing, again, like having mental flexibility is how we have to look at these things. And that recovery, while it's for everyone, is going to look different for everyone. So I would say healing looks like a person managing even their worst situations with grace for themselves. I think that's a big part of it because nothing is ever going to come out in like a perfect scenario. We won't always have the best case scenario, but how you treat yourself at the end of the day, I think that is true healing. Being kind to yourself, being able to say, you know what, this is what you were able to give for the day, and this is what the outcome was, and now we can move on from it and we can do better a different time. I think that would be what true healing looks like for my clients, is having that compassion for themselves and growing from those situations.
Yeah, I think that's what we all want, especially if we've ever been in burnout, to show up for your best self. And it's a better way to give back and a better way to just like express and live life. And being hard on yourself doesn't help. I mean, it doesn't help anyone, really.
Yeah.
And I think in a situation with high pressure and high in these moments, it could feel really daunting. And you want to give your best self, but you just sometimes don't know how. So when you can get to that place of healing and you're operating at full capacity and you're able to like have time for yourself, I think that's the dream that everyone, or at least I'm chasing.
Yeah, it's something I like what you said, like creating something. It's like creating a system of support and joy that doesn't rely on constant achievement. It's imperfect and deeply personal.
So for the event professional, it feels like they should be able to handle it all, but deep down they're like hitting that wall. What would you say to them?
I thought of my friend, um, who's does event planning, and it's like her face just flashed in my mind immediately. And first and foremost, you are not first an event planner. You are first a woman. You are first a human being. And you are allowed to be those things and allowed to let those things shine in the work you do rather than thinking that the work you do has to be a reflection of you. And so I would tell that woman, make sure that like as you're doing everything that you love the woman that you are as you do those things.
And that is the whole reason why I started this podcast. And we're done. No, not that we're done, but really, like it's really, I didn't script her. I didn't ask her to say any of this. Um, It really is the whole reason because we often put everything else, the event, the food, the vendors, everyone else first that we, as an event pro, don't put ourselves. And if we're not at our optimal level, I know so many people who just want to quit the industry because they're like, it's just a better life. I can have a desk job. Yes, but you could also have a fulfilling life in the space and not burn out. And it's putting yourself first to get there. So let's switch gears. I want to Rohan for the audience. So what's the best event you've ever attended and what made it unforgettable?
Oh gosh. Okay. So best event I've ever attended, it was a leadership training in Texas for my sorority. And I think what made it absolutely the best was how everyone was so authentic. So you never felt like you had to perform in your own leadership role, like you needed to be more or know everything. Everyone was open about learning from each other. And we were talking about like hard topics in a way that was so supportive that I was just like, I mean, yeah, the food was great. Yeah, the games were fun, but the how authentic everyone was what really like made it for me.
What is one question you would like to ask event professionals? The goal of this is that then in the comments online, they answer back from their own experience. So it could be about anything, whether production, decor, linens, the speakers you choose, any of it.
The first thing that pops into my mind is like, how do you make it fun?
Oh, how do you make it a fun?
Yeah. And that could be pretty broad. That could be like fun for your attendees or fun for you, but like, how do you make it fun?
That is a great question because it could be fun for like how they make their teams feel like it's fun, like working throughout the day, especially like long days. But then also the attendee too. I can't wait for all of the answers about that because I think there are going to be a lot of different responses. So great question.
Yeah. I have a belief that things should be fun. So like how we do that?
Agreed. I've worked with people that have coined terms like edutainment. So it's like education and entertainment. So it should be just a combination of both. There should be fun in like the education aspect, but I think also people I've worked with, like we wholeheartedly believe that like all of it should be fun. Like when we go to a meeting, and not every meeting even about the budget can be fun, but how can we at least laugh and enjoy ourselves in the process?
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I think this conversation is gonna like hit home for a lot of people, and I'm sure more people will have questions after this too. So where can listeners learn more about you and Grounds for Therapy?
More listeners can learn more about me at groundsfortherapy.com. And then I also have an Instagram. If any of your listeners would like to help me with my social media, let me know. But at Grounds for Therapy, also on Instagram, I like to post little things for, I'm also a clinical supervisor, so I post things for other people who are becoming therapists. I post things for my clients to think about things that they want to bring up in therapy. Sometimes it's like, I don't know what to talk about. I post all different kinds of things to kind of help people through their therapeutic journey, whatever that looks like for them.
I love it. I love it. I'm sure someone's is dying to work with you. Maybe not dying, it's a horrible choice of word. But They're excited, and when they hear that, I'll put it in the show notes as well, your links as well, and the website so that everyone has easy access to them. And then for any upcoming projects, workshops, resources that you have coming up you want to tell anyone about?
If you're looking for local resources in your community, NAMI, NAMI, National Alliance for Mental Illness, they always have updated resources for local areas for people, and there's usually local chapters, and they can help you get connected to things. Psychology Today is also a great resource. They can always help you get connected to different therapists, different specialties, support groups even sometimes. And then there's just like a lot of online platforms that people can use to help find whatever it is that they're looking for. There's Headway, there's Growth Therapy, there's BetterHelp if someone wants to utilize that as well. There's just so much out there. Don't feel like you're limited to anything at all.
I love that. There's a lot of ways, and we'll plug all those resources too, and link them so that anyone who wants access can have that. And any final thoughts, Sarah? So for the event pro, who I know we've given a lot of tips and a lot of practical takeaways, and I think they'll find them meaningful. But for the event pro listening who doesn't know where to start but wants to feel like themselves again, any last thoughts, any last words for them?
I would say the biggest thing is like, I like to think of things reflected in what we do, right? So if our ultimate goal is to execute an event, right, you always want everything to go right. You should want that same thing for you, right? So if you won't give up on your event, don't give up on yourself either. If you're willing to make those quick last minute decisions to make something work out for your event, you should also be doing that for you.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for being here, Sarah. I'm excited that we finally were able to sit down, and I really thank you, and I respect you, and I honor, and I look up to you so much. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I was talking to my boyfriend about this, and I was like, I want to be like Kayla when I grow up. That's definitely something that I want. So thank you so much for having me here. I look forward to any conversations that we have in the future.